Welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking into something I think is super interesting.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to be looking into Allan Kardec's The Spirits book,
Okay.
and specifically Part 1, Chapter 4, which is called The Vital Principle.
Interesting.
Now, what is really unique about this book is that a lot of the insights in it come from Kardec directly questioning spirits.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost like an interview style
Yeah, like
with these
Q&A.
beings
Right.
with a different perspective on existence.
Yeah. Fascinating approach to tackle these big questions about life and death and, intelligence and instinct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are going to be kind of looking at this spiritist perspective on what makes something alive versus just like existing.
Oh, yeah.
So what is this like spark of life?
Right.
Where does that come from?
Yeah.
What is the vital principle?
Yeah, I think that's a really key thing to sort of define here.
Yeah, it's not just about being alive.
Right.
Like there's a deeper distinction.
She's-
So both organic beings like us and inorganic matter, like rocks, they're all formed from the same basic like elements, right?
Right, yeah.
But living things have this extra something.
Yeah, that's right.
This vital principle that
Right.
animates them.
Yeah, it's kind of like the hidden engine driving all those processes we associate with life.
Right.
But the interesting thing is that engine, that vital principle, it doesn't just come out of nowhere.
Right.
The spirits describe it as coming from like this universal fluid, this fundamental force that's like everywhere.
Oh, like gravity.
Yeah, Kardec even compares it to something like gravity, essential, powerful, but we don't fully understand it.
But then that begs the question, why aren't rocks growing?
Yeah,
Why aren't they thinking?
that's the interesting part.
Yeah, where?
The spirits say in like organic beings, this universal fluid interacts with the matter in this really specific way.
Okay.
And it animalizes it.
Animalizes it. Okay.
Yeah, it might sound strange, but think of it this way. It's like the vital principle takes the raw potential of that universal fluid and it kind of shapes it.
Yeah.
Tailors it to each specific life form.
It's like a blueprint.
Yeah, almost like a blueprint that
Yeah.
guides how that living being is organized and how it functions.
So it's not that a rock lacks the potential for life.
Right.
It's just that the vital principle hasn't acted upon it in that specific way.
Exactly.
Oh,
And the fascinating thing to me is that the spirits suggest that this whole animalization process, it's like incredibly precise. It's
Yeah.
not just some generic life force,
right.
It's tailored to each species, which explains the incredible diversity we see in nature.
That makes sense. But that brings up another question for me.
Sure.
What about death?
Okay.
If this vital principle is so powerful,
Right.
why do living things eventually die?
Okay.
Is it like running out of gas or something?
Well, the spirits actually have a very straightforward answer for that.
Okay.
Death, they say, is simply the wearing out of the physical body. Just like a machine with too many miles on it, our organs just eventually reach a point where they can't function properly.
So it's not that the vital principle just disappears. It's more like the body it's animating can no longer like sustain it.
Exactly.
Oh.
The vital principle is a skilled driver, but, eventually even the best driver can't keep a broken down car running.
Right. Yeah.
And once that physical body dies, the vital principle just goes back to that universal fluid,
Okay.
ready to be animalized again in a new life form.
It's like a cosmic recycling program.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
But if death is just the body wearing out,
Mm.
does that raise some questions about near-death experiences?
Yeah.
Like, is there a point where the vital principle is like irrevocably gone? Or can it be like pulled back even at the last moment?
That's a really interesting question, and it definitely delves into some complex territory. I think maybe we'll save that for another deep dive.
Okay, fair enough.
But even with this understanding of death, there's still so much to unpack about how this vital principle relates to things like consciousness and intelligence.
Right, because like a rock is not conscious.
Exactly.
So how does that work?
Yeah, how does this vital principle play into those higher functions?
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff.
Very cool.
We'll get into that right after the break. Yeah, picking up on that idea that the body itself isn't intelligent,
Great.
It's really interesting. It makes you wonder what we even mean by intelligence.
It does. It kind of challenges our assumptions a little bit.
Mm.
Because we think intelligence, like complex thought reasoning and problem solving.
Yeah.
But the spirits, they make a distinction between just like living and being capable of thought.
Right. And what's interesting is they use plants as an example.
Oh.
Like plants are alive, they grow, they respond to their environment, but the spirits are saying they lack intelligence in the way that we typically understand it.
So like a sunflower turning towards the sun.
Yeah.
That's not intelligence.
It is clever,
Yeah.
but the spirits argue that plants are operating on something different,
Okay.
something they call instinct.
Instinct.
Yeah, it's like this pre-programmed intelligence,
Okay.
a set of responses that help ensure their survival, but they don't involve like conscious thought or decision making.
Okay, so I see the distinction there. So for humans and animals, then intelligence comes from that union of the vital principle with matter,
Right.
but it's shaped by something more.
Exactly. The spirits suggest that true intelligence, the kind that we humans have, requires a spirit.
Okay.
So it's the spirit that brings that capacity for thought,
Yeah.
self-awareness, and the ability to interact with the world in a meaningful way.
So the vital principle is like the hardware of life,
Yes.
the physical body and the functions,
Yeah.
but the spirit is like the software,
Yeah.
the consciousness and intelligence that allows us to experience and understand the world.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And what's really mind-blowing is the spirits suggest that the spirit, the source of intelligence, it's actually drawn from a universal intelligence. This like vast cosmic pool of consciousness that permeates everything.
So we're not just individuals with separate minds.
Right.
We're all connected to this larger intelligence.
Exactly. It's like we're all accessing the same cosmic internet.
Yeah.
And the implications of that are huge. It
Yeah.
suggests that there's a much deeper level of interconnectedness between all living beings,
Yeah.
that we're all part of this like grand tapestry of consciousness.
But if we're all tapping into this universal intelligence, why are there such vast differences in our intellectual abilities?
That's where the spirit's explanation gets really interesting.
Yeah.
They say that the development of our intelligence is influenced by many factors.
Oh, okay.
Including our past experiences and
Yeah.
our current circumstances, and even the choices we make.
So it's not just how much of this universal intelligence we can access.
Right.
It's also how we use it and develop it over time.
Exactly. The spirits emphasize that we have free will,
Right.
the ability to choose how we think and act.
Yep.
And those choices shape our intellectual growth.
Okay.
It's like we're given this amazing tool, this connection to universal intelligence, but it's up to us to hone it and use it wisely.
That makes sense.
So bringing this back to instinct, if plants operate primarily on instinct and we humans have this higher intelligence,
Right.
where does instinct fit into the picture for us?
Yeah. Do we still have it, or have we evolved beyond it?
The spirits actually have a kind of surprising answer to that.
Okay.
They say that instinct isn't absent in humans. It's just often overshadowed by our more developed intelligence.
So it's still there lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly.
Even if we're not always aware of it.
And what's even more fascinating is they say that instinct, unlike reason, is infallible.
Wait, infallible?
Yeah.
But we make bad decisions all the time based on our gut feelings.
Well, it's important to distinguish between true instinct
Yeah.
and just impulsive reactions.
Yep.
The spirits are talking about a deeper level of knowing, this kind of primal wisdom that connects us to the natural order of things.
Okay.
And they argue that this instinct is never wrong because it's not clouded by our ego or personal desires or, flawed reasoning.
So our instincts are like a direct line to this universal intelligence,
Yeah.
unfiltered by our own thoughts and biases.
That's the idea. And it raises some interesting questions about the role of instinct in our lives.
Right.
Like, if it's this infallible guide, why do we so often ignore it or override it with our conscious thoughts?
Maybe because we've been taught to value logic and reason
It's possible, yeah.
over everything else,
We live in a world that definitely prioritizes the rationale over the intuitive.
Yeah.
But the spirits suggest that by neglecting our instincts, we're missing out on a really valuable source of wisdom and guidance.
Uh-huh.
They even go so far as to say that instinct can often lead us to better outcomes than reason alone.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
But if instinct is so reliable, why do we see so many examples of people making terrible decisions based on their gut feelings?
Well, that's where discernment comes in.
Discernment.
Yeah, and the spirits are very clear that it's important to be able to distinguish between true instinct, that deep inner knowing,
Okay.
and those impulsive reactions that are fueled by, fear, desire, or ego.
So it's not just about following every impulse.
Right.
It's about cultivating a sense of inner wisdom,
Exactly.
learning to tell the difference between the instincts that are helpful and the ones that might lead us astray.
That's it. And the Spirit suggests that as we develop that discernment, we'll find that our instincts become more and more aligned with our spiritual purpose,
Okay.
guiding us towards choices that support our highest good and the good of others.
It's like refining our internal compass, so it points us in the right direction.
Exactly, towards a life of, meaning and fulfillment.
Okay.
But here's a thought.
Yeah.
If instinct is this powerful force for good,
Right.
why is there so much conflict and suffering in the world?
Yeah. Shouldn't our instincts be leading us towards harmony and peace?
That's a great question, and it's one that the spirits acknowledge.
Okay.
They suggest that part of the human experience involves learning to align our individual will with the divine will,
Oh?
with that universal intelligence that guides all of creation.
Yeah.
And sometimes that process, it involves some friction, some challenges, situations that push us to grow and evolve.
So it's not that our instincts are flawed.
Right.
Is that we're still learning how to use them effectively
Exactly.
to kind of integrate them with our reason and our free will.
To create a more harmonious and enlightened world.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the spirits are very optimistic about humanity's potential. They believe that as we continue to evolve spiritually,
Yeah.
we'll become more attuned to our instincts, more guided by love and compassion, and better able to create a world that reflects the wisdom and harmony of the universe.
That's a beautiful vision.
Yeah, it's hopeful.
It makes me think that cultivating our instincts is not just about personal growth. It's about contributing to a collective awakening,
Yeah,
a shift toward a more conscious and interconnected way of being.
I love that.
So how do we do it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it's one that we'll need to explore further.
Okay.
Yeah. So where do we go from here?
Yeah. How do we actually do it?
Like, how do we tap into that instinct in a practical way?
Right.
The spirits don't really give us a step-by-step guide,
Right.
but they do give us some clues.
Okay.
They emphasize connecting with our intuition,
Okay.
becoming more aware of those subtle inner nudges.
So it's not like we just have to be psychic all of a sudden
No.
or ditch logic altogether.
It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between head and heart.
Okay, so reason and intuition working together.
Yeah. And learning to listen to that quiet inner voice
Yeah.
amidst all the mental chatter and the distraction.
Right, it's like hitting the pause button on our mind
Exactly.
to give space for those instinctive insights to come up.
Yeah, but what about those times when we have a tough decision
Yeah.
and our gut feelings are like confused or contradictory?
Yeah, how do we know which one to trust?
Well, that's where that discernment comes in.
Okay.
And the spirits are very clear. This is a skill.
Okay.
It takes time.
Okay.
They say, pay attention to the quality of the instinct.
Okay.
Does it feel aligned with your values,
Right.
with a sense of peace and clarity?
Right.
Or is it driven by fear, ego attached to
But
that?
so it's not just blindly following every impulse.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating this inner wisdom.
Exactly.
Okay. And learning to tell the difference between those helpful instincts and the ones that might not be so helpful.
That's right. And the spirits say, as we develop that discernment, we'll start to see our instincts align more and more with our spiritual purpose,
Okay.
guiding us toward choices that are for our highest good
Okay.
and the good of others.
So it's like refining our internal compass.
Yes.
So it always points us in the right direction.
Toward a life of meaning and fulfillment.
This has been a really interesting look into the vital principle.
It has.
We've explored some pretty deep concepts.
We have.
Life and death,
Intelligence.
intelligence, instinct, all of that.
It's fascinating stuff.
It makes you think.
It does. And the wisdom in Allan Kardec's book, there's so much more to discover.
Right, we've only just scratched the surface.
I encourage you to keep exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
Delve a little deeper into this mystery of the vital principle.
It's all about trusting your gut.
Yeah, trusting that inner wisdom,
Yeah.
opening yourself up to a world of possibilities.
And a life of purpose.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those minds curious.
Keep diving deep.